You think expansion creates stability. It doesn't. You think more scale means more control. It doesn't. You think growth reinforces structure. It doesn't. You think expansion solves pressure. It doesn't. You think reaching further makes the system stronger. It doesn't. You think more connections create more resilience. They don't. It looks like strengthening. It looks like consolidation. It looks like control extending outward. It isn't. Expansion is not stability. It is displacement. This is Achronic, a long-form documentary series about power, geography, and time. Not events, not heroes, not chronology. Structures that outlast empires. What appears as growth is only movement spreading beyond its original constraints. It is not resolution, it is extension. Every expansion moves pressure outward, but it does not eliminate it. It redistributes it. And redistribution is not stabilization, it is delay. Delay accumulates. As systems expand, they increase their reach, but they also increase their exposure. More nodes, more connections, more dependencies, more variables that cannot be fully controlled. Expansion multiplies complexity, and complexity resists stability. What was once contained becomes distributed. What was once manageable becomes diffuse. Control does not expand with the system. It fragments, because control depends on proximity, and expansion creates distance. Distance reduces visibility. Distance reduces responsiveness. Distance reduces alignment. Distance introduces delay, and delay compounds. The system becomes larger, but less coherent. It holds more, but controls less. Expansion creates the illusion of strength, because scale is visible, but instability is not. Instability accumulates in what cannot be seen, in delays, in misalignment, in dependency chains, in everything that stretches beyond immediate control. As expansion continues, coordination becomes slower. Signals take longer to propagate. Decisions take longer to execute. Corrections take longer to apply. And during that time, pressure continues to build. Expansion does not remove friction. It distributes it across a wider surface. But distributed friction does not disappear. It accumulates, layer by layer, connection by connection, silently, until it exceeds the system's capacity to absorb it. This is when instability becomes visible, not as collapse, as fragmentation. Parts begin to operate independently. Alignment weakens. Coordination breaks. Responses diverge. The system does not fail all at once. It desynchronizes. Expansion makes this inevitable. Because the larger the system, the harder it is to keep it aligned. Every added layer increases delay. Every added connection increases dependency. Every added node increases variability. Expansion creates reach, but reduces cohesion. This is the trade-off that cannot be avoided. You cannot expand without losing control. You cannot grow without increasing instability. You cannot scale without introducing delay. These are not side effects. They are structural. Expansion does not amplify control. It dilutes it. Control becomes indirect, delayed, approximate. The system begins to rely on signals that arrive too late, on information that is already outdated, on responses that no longer match the conditions they were meant to address. This is how instability deepens. Not through failure, through misalignment. The system continues to function, but no longer in sync. It continues to operate, but no longer with precision. It continues to expand, but no longer with coherence. This is where expansion becomes irreversible, because once complexity reaches a certain threshold, it cannot be simplified. It can only be redistributed. This is where stability becomes impossible. Not because the system is weak, because it is too large to align, too extended to coordinate, too dependent to control. This is why expansion replaces control with tolerance. The system stops trying to stabilize. It starts trying to endure. It absorbs variation. It absorbs delay. It absorbs misalignment. But absorption has limits, and those limits are structural. The more the system expands, the closer it moves to them, because every additional layer increases stress. Every additional dependency introduces fragility. Every additional connection amplifies failure. Expansion does not create resilience. It creates sensitivity. The system becomes more reactive, more exposed, more vulnerable to disruption, because everything is connected, and connection transmits failure faster than control can respond. This is where expansion becomes self-defeating, because the system begins to spend more energy maintaining itself than directing anything external. Maintenance replaces direction. Adjustment replaces control. Stability is replaced by continuous correction. The system is no longer stable. It is constantly compensating. This is where perception fails, because expansion still looks like strength. The system still appears intact, still visible, still functioning. But internally, it is no longer aligned. It is no longer synchronized. It is no longer coherent. This is where shifts begin. Not at the center, at the edges, where pressure accumulates, where coordination fails first, where control is weakest. New structures begin to form, not as replacements, as alternatives. They operate independently. They align differently. They follow new patterns. They are smaller, faster, more coherent, more capable of control. Expansion does not prevent this. It creates it, because it creates the conditions where alignment cannot be maintained. Over time, these alternatives grow. They attract flow. They gain relevance. They establish their own structure. And eventually, they replace what expanded. Not through confrontation, through realignment. The system does not collapse. It reorganizes. What expanded becomes too diffuse to control, too complex to align, too slow to respond, too dependent to stabilize. What replaces it is smaller, more aligned, more coherent, more capable of maintaining control, until it expands again. And the cycle repeats. Expansion, fragmentation, recentering, again, and again, and again. Expansion never stabilizes systems. It only postpones their reconfiguration. It delays what it cannot prevent. It amplifies what it cannot resolve. It accelerates the conditions that will eventually replace it. You do not stabilize by growing. You destabilize at scale. And once instability is distributed, it cannot be contained. It can only be reorganized. And what you thought was stability was only expansion in motion. And expansion in motion is already losing control. And once control is diluted, it cannot be recovered at the same scale. It can only be rebuilt somewhere smaller, somewhere more aligned, somewhere that has not yet expanded. And once it expands, it will follow the same path, because expansion does not create stability. It guarantees its end.